what's so great and funny about the movie is that it is so honest. And as actors, that's what we want to embrace is the honesty through that point of view of all the characters having to learn and experience for the first time.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you are listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we're joined by a very special guest. He's one of the finest creative artists in the industry today. You've seen him on projects such as Employee of the Month, Perpetual Grace Ltd., and as Pedro in the cult classic Napoleon Dynamite, a character that stole the show in every scene he was in. On the show today, the very talented Efren Ramirez. How are you, Efren?
So I'm having breakfast. it's
Well, hey,
it's almost 1 o'clock in my time, and I'm like having breakfast. I work like a vampire sometimes. It all depends on the role that I'm doing next.
mm-hmm. It's all good, brother, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. How have you been over the last 18 months, Efren? We're living in such a crazy world, especially in the creative arts. What did the last 2 years look like for you?
Mm, well, no matter what, whether we're living in the pandemic or not, the artist still has to work and create, right? You still have to develop and memorize lines and break down characters and break down stories. In the end, let's just say if we lived 2,000 years ago, right? What would we have?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'd be storytellers. You'd be a reporter, a journalist, right? You wouldn't have a podcast. You'd
No,
be
no.
standing. You'd be probably standing somewhere in the academy in Greece, making the announcements. On here, we are here to discover the very ideas and thoughts and the
Yeah.
artist known as. So,
Yeah.
yeah, right. We would continue on doing what we do. So
Mm-hmm.
the reality does take us to the measures of having to think about how we take care of ourselves and each other. And that's important too. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
believe in the pandemic or not, the pandemic believes in you. So it will take your life if you're not smart.
That's
Um,
deep. That's deep.
yeah. So in the end, we still have to again do what's right and take care of ourselves and continue on with work. If you're
Mm-hmm.
if you're tied in a lockdown in your profession because of the pandemic, well, you have to re-examine your life, re-examine your family, and and think about uh, um, what your loved ones need, right? What they need, right? Because it's we're all going through this together, and no one is leaving this planet alive. That's the truth.
Yeah. Well, hey, Efren, I'm so fascinated by your story. You're having such a consistent career in this medium, whether it's TV shows, movies, voice acting. So let's deep dive into a role of yours that's one of my all time favorites, and that's Pedro in Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
17 years later, man, people are still talking about this movie, and that's not the case with whatever movie won the Best Picture in the Oscars that year. Does it feel like a lifetime ago to you? Or in many ways, when you have conversations like these, does it take you right back on set?
Well, when you work on sets, mm, you live through that character's world and that character's life, and one of the things about working on Napoleon Dynamite was is that I took many chances and I wasn't so sure, but being able to work on this independent film with where a lot of people knew each other, uh, um, since most of them went to BYU, they went to college together and they studied film. Um, when I came on board, I was nervous because I was playing the lead role and I was playing a character role, and I wasn't so sure. But until I met Jon Heder, um, and I met John Grice and Tina Majorino and Dietrich Bader, the director, everybody really welcomed me into that world. So you have that trust, and I could be accountable to the work that I do, and I could rely on the director's direction. So and there was a lot of joy, and there was a lot of fun because you're working in a small town and everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
So all you got is each other, and when you have that, um, we were able to create somebody like all those characters in that world of Napoleon Dynamite. So
Hmm.
it was so much
Yeah.
love. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's Pedro is such a memorable character, and of course you have a comedic genius and director and writer Jared Hess, who does an amazing job of creating these quirky and likable characters. But you are the one that brings that character to life, whether it's the voice, the body language. One of the great things, yeah, really, come on. One of the great things about this movie is the great cast, as you mentioned, Jon Heder, John Grace, Aaron Ruel. This movie is a mosaic of puzzle pieces that kind of just come together perfectly to create this magic. What was your favorite part about shooting with those creatives?
um, I would say seeing everybody else, because you do your job, but being able to embrace that world. I mean, sometimes I would go because there was nothing really to do there in Preston Idaho because it's a small town. Um, that there's moments when my favorite it was having to see Jon Heder and Rule when they're doing the whole time machine scene.
Yeah, it's classic.
Because and just the way the director shoots, the way Jared shot the film, he had his own style and he was very specific and clear with the characters, and you see a lot of Kip's reactions towards what he's doing, which is hilarious. But even the people in the town, there was when we weren't shooting, Lyle would come and hang out, and he would have a full on conversation with you, and you would go, "What is he saying?" He'd be mumbling all that. Like, sure, dude. So, so that was funny. Um,
Yeah,
you know, but even when you think about it, because I just saw the film when when the bus picks up Napoleon Dynamite and he goes onto the bus with all those little kids and the kid sitting next to him. He's like looking at Napoleon weird, and he's like, "So what are you doing today, Napoleon?"
yeah.
So that really does set up the premise of the film itself. Where it's so what's so great and funny about the movie is that it is so honest, and as actors, that's what we want to embrace is the honesty through that point of view of all the characters having to learn and experience for the first time. Um, and 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 in many films, you don't get to see that. So
That's really true, Efren, and that's one thing that when you watch this movie at a different part of your life versus when you watch it when it originally came out, you can just see it still holds up in terms of like the how human these characters really are,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Compare that to other blockbusters and movies that come out. It's like, you kind of watch it once and that's kind of about it. So one thing that's changed the most since Napoleon Dynamite has come out is that the way people view media, and with streaming, it's completely changed everything. People continue to rediscover it and discover Napoleon Dynamite for the first time on a platform like Netflix or Amazon or whatever. How often do you get people coming up to you saying they just watched this movie for the first time, like yesterday or last week?
Well, I'll tell you what was interesting was that when people get to see it like in theaters together, when that happens, um, it becomes so visceral and so eclectic because now you're with strangers and you're actually reacting the same way as you see it. Um, sometimes because of the world that we live in today, people would watch Napoleon Dynamite either on their phones or at home,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same experience, but being able to really understand that we're all in this together, and oh yeah, there's people get to really experience it and remember how wonderful these moments are in the world of Napoleon Dynamite through his point of view. Um, for because the movie is such a cult classic, where every year around Halloween, people would go to these to the costume stores and dress up as Pedro and dress as
Yeah.
Napoleon. Um, it's so great to be a part of, you know. So no matter how far into technology, because I do believe that we have moved on, we've moved from the technology age to the information age, because technology had established itself, but now we've moved on to information. Now the world is getting all this information, but there's good information and bad information. Bad information is when it's not
Right.
true, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
people who spread bad information can darken the world by saying calling everything's a lie. So it truly is up to the individual to really uh, um, look at life and learn about life, so they can make their own decisions, so they could become, as Maslow would say, self-actualized, right? So you could think for yourself. And we're human beings, and human beings are meant to be on this planet for a number of years, just so they could learn and grow as much as possible. If you because when it's done, it's over. As they say in Spanish, se acabó. It's over.
No, that's really interesting and fascinating your perspective on that because I've had similar conversations with many different creatives that kind of feel that way in a lot of different ways. And something with social media, it's a wonderful platform for so many things. But at the same time, as you mentioned about the misinformation and what people are choosing to put out, now everyone has a voice, whether it's good or bad. So it's one of those things that we continue to adapt, and especially in a medium like this where it's connected so many people together. There is so many different ways, and especially a movie like Napoleon Dynamite, where with social media, could you imagine if like Instagram or like Facebook or Twitter was a thing when this movie came out? It just maybe it would. Yeah, I wonder if it would have had that effect on it or not, or maybe the beauty of this movie is the fact that it didn't have all those social media platforms at the time.
Yeah, but even as we were discussing this yesterday, that remember, Kip was actually online. He was chatting with babes online, so it was
Dating websites,
tied
yeah.
in already.
Mm.
So we're in between worlds. How different would it have been if we all had cell phones? How different would it have been if we were able to communicate and we had an example robots? Imagine Napoleon Dynamite having a robot. I can only imagine the robot talking exactly like him. Hello there, Napoleon. What? How can I help you? So, who knows? With horns, looking like a warrior. Uh,
Yeah.
um, uh, but uh, there, social media is inevitable, kind of like the Matrix. It's inevitable, but how we use it and what we come to understand how it enhances our evolution of thinking, depends on the direction we want to go. What? It's so early in the morning, or rather, I'm just waking up and I'm like so deep.
It's really deep, man. That's really
Yeah.
deep. So, what does the character of Pedro mean to you and to your life since the movie came out?
That anything is possible. Look, I funny. I was going to school and I was working on Hamlet, and I mean I worked on Tennessee Williams and Odette and
Yeah, some
David Mamet.
Shakespeare and stuff.
So
Yeah.
doing the work, and then I ended up booking a show called Even Stevens, and right during Even Stevens, I got Napoleon Dynamite and another film, and so it's like I'm known to play so many different characters, that I don't. You kind of go, well, let me think about what I don't want to do. I don't want to generalize a character, and I don't want to generalize a life.
Hmm.
So if I understand myself, that of myself, then what does that mean that I where I want to go? So for me, if I work on 2 or 3 projects a year, every character I do, I'm gonna fully engulf myself into that world, and hope that I can observe as much as possible and take in as much as possible, so that when I'm living in that life and in that moment, I get to be present, because that's what the camera records, so that these are these just for these private moments that are so special, um, funny or not.
Yeah.
Uh, 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 the audience will see. So when you see my work or the work that I do, um, uh, there's something about it, and I am grateful of having to play Pedro on Napoleon Dynamite, because when the film blew up as it did, I got a chance to meet so many wonderful actors. Jack Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman, Johnny Depp,
Oh,
Benicio
wow.
del Toro, Edward James Olmos, Sir Anthony Hopkins. I work with Sir Ben Kingsley. It's like, and they just give me great advice. I got 3 projects coming out next year, and just the actors who I'm working with are blows my mind because they're
Nice.
remarkable artists, and I get to experience that as an artist and learn, what they're willing to teach me. So there's just that part as an artist, and then there's me as a man as I travel the world, just meeting really incredible people who share their lives with me and talk about the pandemic, talk about where we are going as a society, as a civilization. Um, because that's important too, and that's fuel for the soul. It's kind of like when as a journalist, you grab a book, you read a book, and that's going to influence you into reading another book that you never thought you would be reading. So the choice really is, like, what Black Sheep says it, right? The choice is yours, right? The choice is yours. Like, you choose whether you want to grow or not. And for me, I just find it as a window of opportunity, as much as possible, while I'm alive.
Uh, hey, man,
Dang,
it's full
why
of
did you
deep
why
wisdom. I don't know what you're drinking in that cup there, man, but you're dropping mad facts. Oh, man. Hey, as we wrap up with the great Efren Ramirez, it is now time for a segment I call the final act. Efren, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you 10 rapid fire questions about your likes and your dislikes. And we just want the first thing that comes to your mind. But here's the catch. We're going to give
What?
you 1 minute to try to get through it. You up for it?
Oh, and how many questions are there?
10.
10? In one
Yeah.
minute, 10?
I think you'll
Okay.
nail it, man. I think you'll nail it.
I'm nervous.
Movies or TV shows?
Movies.
Theater or watch at home?
Theater.
Favorite movie?
Donnie Darko.
Favorite TV show?
Uh, that's I skip. Uh,
Favorite trilogy?
Star Wars. A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, and Empire Strikes Back. My favorite, of course. Right? Follow
Summer,
those. That's amazing.
summer or fall?
Dang. Because LA, the weather's always pretty much almost the same. So, but fall.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Does it belong there?
Yeah.
Everybody has a freedom of choice. So, I don't know. As long as it doesn't have SpongeBob SquarePants. So,
Do you own any Vote for Pedro shirts?
yes, yes. So I could give it to my kids one day.
Nice. Lastly, describe Napoleon Dynamite in one word.
Love.
Bam. You killed it at that, Efren. You really did, man. And I appreciate the honesty and the candidness. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And thank you for your contributions to the creative arts. Napoleon Dynamite's one of my all time favorite movies, and you play a massive part in creating the love that I have for that film. I truly wish you all the best, and I look forward to having you back on the show to discuss your next project.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're pretty big for next year. I want to tell you what they are, but I'll have the studios knocking on my door.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait till next year. Thank you,
You got
Efren.
it, brother. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
man. Thank you.